continue to undermine our efforts in environment protection. Therefore, the current policies are not only justified by necessarily shifting behavior, but we need to promote more sustainable practices. They're not just here to like build onto like bring down businesses or just but they're here to bring a different approach into conservation measures. They're here to bring a better way of fighting pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary, for highlighting to us the role of the ministry, government in tackling during ending plastic pollution. Why don't we give an online round of applause to her? Thank you for the claps to Rosemary, because Rosemary has requested to exit the meeting for another meeting. I think I'll give an opportunity to maybe 2 questions before she goes, because it is the responsibility of the government to ensure healthy in environment citizens, and that is what is cited in even in the Kenyan Constitution. So government plays a key role, and I think I would give an opportunity to maybe 2 questions. You can also join our chat room and highlight a question that you have for Rosemary before she exits. Any question? I'm being told there's some network hitches from my end. There's some hitches. If there's no question, maybe to highlight, maybe to ask about the extended producer responsibility. What is maybe for Rosemary, what is the implementation process? I overheard that there are some, Kenya is a legislative country and people like going to court. That there are some manufacturers or some stakeholders that have not been happy with it. So to what extent is this extended producer responsibility facing hitches in terms of implementation? Maybe to Rosemary about the extended producer responsibility of 2024.
Can you come again? You're breaking. I can't hear you.
The question is about extended producer responsibility, and my question is, how is the implementation of this particular regulation going? Is it facing some hitches? I overheard about some people going to court to stop its implementation because they were not happy with some of its clauses. Is that clear now?
Yes, I can. I got you quite so well. Yes, there will always be resistance or conflict when it comes to the implementation of new policies, especially those that disrupt established practices or affect some business. So yes, there is some issues at some point, but it's being sorted. So there's some producers, some manufacturers, yes, went to court. But at the moment, I can't speak much of it, but it's at the ending phase. Let me say it's at the ending phase because it's quite a nice policy. It's a nice regulation. If for the few that did not understand it well, we'll have some fight to come up with. But I can't speak much of it.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Okay, I'm trying to check the chat, and I can't see name. And there is a comment here by that provider. The purpose says that there is a lot of negligence, especially in consumption tire from supply. I think that is a question for us to, or an input for us to ponder about Rosemary's presentation. So thank you very much, Rosemary, for the presentation. So at this juncture, we'll invite our next presenter. And our next presenter is Eric Chai, or the other name is Chivasti. And Eric is a compliance environmental health and safety coordinator of an organization or an institution called Mr. Green Trading Africa. Eric is passionate about environment, health, and safety, and is a professional with a strong advocacy on clean and environments. Eric holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Science from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and also a diploma in Environmental Health and Safety Management. He also holds Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology certification on project management, and he has diverse experience spanning from manufacturing, telecommunications, and natural resource conservation, with impactful roles from Coca-Cola, Coastal Bottlers, Base Electronics, and the Wild Living Resources Organization. Eric's focus is on behavioral approaches to environmental advocacy, bridging technical compliance with people-centered change. So Eric is an expert in environmental health and safety. And as we have already said, plastic pollution has got a direct health and safety impact. And Eric is going to speak to us about managing upstream plastic waste flows, with a question on how far are we from the mark. Mr. Eric, the floor is yours. You have your 15 minutes starting now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Kindly confirm if I'm audible enough from your end.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you very much. So, yes, thank you for the good. It was a very elaborate introduction. I think I won't repeat anything that has been said. So allow me to spend the next few minutes just to share some of the few things that I have with us as we are getting prepared towards Thursday to mark that big day. I would say, as much as we are marking this day, it's just like a reminder of our daily behaviors and how far we've come, as not just as a country, but I want to challenge it as from the perspective of you as an individual. How far has it come? How far have you come? Like the fact that we'll be marking this day on Thursday. Looking back to 3 years ago today, where were you and how are you today as far as this campaign of ending plastic pollution is concerned? So I have a small presentation with us. Allow me to share my screen and kindly confirm if my screen will be visible. Someone to confirm kindly. Someone, I'm on the screen, so I have actually changed my screen, so maybe someone can confirm with an audio.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you. So I'll start with this quote by Ellen from MacArthur Foundation. that lays everything clear that indeed we cannot recycle our way out of the plastic crisis. Just like the way it has been said, and just like the way it is, can continue polluting the environment with plastic, filling the environment with plastic, with an idea, or rather with a mindset that we will recycle all these things. If that is it, then this very quote will really make 20 or so years that indeed we will never get out of this plastic crisis if at all our mindset will be we can actually pollute the environment because we know in the long run we will still recycle. Not every that we are putting or rather introducing in the environment will actually be recycled. So the thing is, it is actually possible to move beyond just the normal cleanups that from my end, I see them as we have actually tried to make these things as events, but and in that case, they have actually lost the touch and lost to some extent lost the meaning that they actually stood for. And this is evident because just like the way I think there is a speaker who has said that he just touched something small about culture and behavior. And I just want to go back to that culture and behavior that we have many people that I will just drink that water. Then after that, I no longer need the bottle. So I'll definitely throw it in the environment. I don't care what happens I don't care where that bottle will go, because after all, we will create those environmental activities for us to clean so that we can do some nice photos and some nice posts. And by the end of the day, we feel that you've done something, while in real sense, it's like you've just taken 2 steps ahead and then it's like you just took 2 steps back and then you just took 1 step ahead, of which there is no progress that you have made at any point. So we want to cut from the downstream to upstream. Now, when we talk of the upstream plastic waste, basically, we want to look at the source, the source that these waste are generated in the many places that we are in. Speak of, or rather talk of the plastic manufacturing product companies, the plastic packaging products, and all those things, all those entities. Is it really possible to ensure that we don't have wasteful production of things that we know if we actually handle them the right way, we could actually make something? So when you talk of the upstream plastic waste, managing upstream plastic waste, basically we want to look at, can we actually look at the project, the product design? Can we look at the life cycle of this design? Are we really thinking of the circular economy in us? And if that is the idea, then we will focus more on prevention rather than actually allowing all these things to go to the end consumer, rather the end user. It goes to the environment, and then we try to make sure that we kind of already, whatever has been polluted the environment, we kind of try to sweep it away. Like it will never get out of it at any point. So the reason as to why we want to focus on the upstream is because it is actually possible to actually eradicate almost 80% of the plastic waste if at all we can actually embrace the upstream interventions. So majorly in most cases, we'll see that actually the design choices majorly determine the recyclability and the environmental impact of the product that in this case you will be handling. So if you look at the general landscape, I think this has been said. You look at the data that is existing, how much waste we are producing, and the percentage of it being plastic, how much the average daily plastic consumption for every person. You look at the cumulative effects that all these things have in the environment and in the general ecosystem, and then you will see that we are actually in a crisis that if we still approach it from the fact that we want to cure not the root cause, but rather we want to just offer some small massage to the problem, then it will be kind of trying to give a painkiller to a headache that you really don't know what is the source of that headache. You'll just give me a painkiller, maybe the pain will subside, and then, but you will not have treated the root cause. So now trying to identify the root cause and trying to see how best can we handle this really matters a lot in this case. And one of the significant steps that Kenya in particular took was the implementation of the plastic ban. In as much as people embraced it and some tried to be a bit resistant, we can actually agree that to a huge extent there is a percentage of plastic that initially was in the environment, but today it's not there. So the idea here is we want to prevent, we want to reduce, we want to prevent in as much as possible the generation of waste from the source. So our approach is basically to look, we want to treat that source. Is it that our processes are not okay? Is it that our processes have some mishaps that we need to look into them and try to straighten them? If that is the case, then it means we will in the long run try to, in a huge way, reduce the general waste that we generate, and as far as plastic is concerned. So it has been said, it has been mentioned about the extended producer responsibility, the national sustainable management policy, the plastic ban. All these are actually some of the upstream policy frameworks in Kenya that we as a nation are trying to embrace. And in as much as we'll have some resistance, in as much as some will not be favorable to us, but if you look at the end goal and we try to dissect keenly on the impact of all these policies and try to actually make sure that the beautiful policies, policies that Kenya holds, the many laws that we have that are very perfect on paper, but when it comes to implementation, it's almost zero. Then I'm sure if we factor them accordingly in a huge way, we will see a positive change in regards to Kenya, in regards to Kenya's fight against plastic pollution. So thank God we have a number of facilities, or rather a number of companies that are trying to help whatever already is in the environment. This is not upstreaming, but rather not tackling the upstream, but rather we are looking at the downstream. Because if we collect that waste from the environment, then it means it has already, the product already reached the consumer and it's now in the environment. And now, from our case, we don't want it to get there. So the existing was between Kenya and the world, you will see that Kenya, even though Kenya leads in bans, we still lack some scalable upstream industry reforms that are actually practical and that can actually be incorporated in our space and make sure that everything is fine.
To Tharaka University.
Looking at the gaps, the way forward, just trying to brush it up and leave some few items, or rather some few minutes to some few thought-provoking statements here, is that we actually still have a weak integration of circular economy in product design, and there is also a limited consumer engagement. We have limited consumer engagement platforms, especially on packaging products, and it could be that we need actually upstream audits and compliance monitoring to try to check on our processes, check on everything that we have. It's actually, if there is a way that we can do away with, we can actually go around them. So the call to action is the downstream fate is hugely determined by the upstream flow. And as far as it is concerned, how far have we, like, what is the mark as Kenya? We actually have a very long way to go. You can see that actually of all the plastic that goes to the environment, around 80%, around 8%, that is what is recycled. So that means the rest ends in landfills, it ends in our oceans, it ends basically in the environment, which actually says that there is a huge gap that exists and we really need coordinated efforts. And as much as we'll be looking at the collective efforts, you also need the individual efforts from each of us, making sure that we stand for what we know. We are saying that we are fighting against plastic pollution. So if we stand and to fight this plastic pollution from your individual point of, from an individual standard, and then it goes up to that collective efforts, then we will actually make a move. So for producers, we need to rethink the design of the products and everything. For the policymakers, we actually need to strengthen regulations and the implementations, because we could be having beautiful policies, but then when they come to implementation, there is no implementation, then it's more or less like a zero. If we empower the consumers, and then they'll demand sustainable packaging, and for the civil society, we need to keep pushing for circular accountability. So the word is the World Environment Day is not just a celebration, but rather a point of reflection. It is upon us to commit to a system that prevents plastic waste before it begins. If that will be our approach, then I'm sure we will actually in the next few years we'll be in a better place. So plastic pollution was actually created by human choices, and it is actually possible to be ended by human action. So if there is a change that we want to see it in the world, that change should be us. So be the change you want the world to see.
Thought-provoking presentation, and I like some of the key pointers I've gathered, that we are not only here to celebrate the World Environment Day, but it should be a point of reflection. So this day has been celebrated since 1973, but it should be a point of reflection, not a point of celebration. Thank you, Eric, for highlighting that. And also, it is very important for us to understand that the downstream is influenced by the upstream. And another point I've gathered is that a lot has been done. You remember the 2017 ban on plastic waste, which led to what we commonly refer to as the Uhuru bag. We also have the EPR regulations, and even the national waste management policy. These are very, very key pointers showing that the country is taking upstream waste plastic pollution control seriously. So at this juncture, I think I would allow 2 questions. But looking at the chat room, there is a comment here by Martin Dirangui, and he's commenting about Kenya and Rwanda. They also have legislative frameworks on waste management. But why is it that in Rwanda, theirs is more effective? For those who have traveled to Rwanda, immediately you reach the airport, the immigration officials tell you that you leave all plastic materials, particularly the plastic bags at the airport. But the question to Eric, maybe which you can respond to, the participant is the implementation levels between Kenya and Rwanda. And then the other question that I can see is also talking about a handful of companies contributing, mostly in Kenya. I think what the question asker is trying to point out is that why is it that not all companies are, or why is it that some companies are involved in pollution, but others get away with it, which I think is a question of enforcement. I think I would also give an opportunity for a verbal. You can unmute and answer your question and ask your question for that matter. Any question to Eric? I think this is a thought-provoking input and a challenge to us as stakeholders. For plastic pollution mitigation enthusiasts, for that matter. Any question to Eric? You can unmute. Yes, Faith. I can see Faith. Yes, but I can see another question here, even as Eric comes in to respond to what is highlighted on the chat room. The question is it possible we have environmental police officers to ensure adherence to policies, similar to the way we have the traffic police. This sounds very interesting. So is it possible to have environmental police? And then
So can I respond?
yes, you can respond.
Thank you. So you can see the chair said we actually have an environmental police. But I think for me, it all goes down to, yes, we have beautiful policies, we have beautiful regulations in place, but the issue comes in the implementation. So, and it goes from, someone said somewhere that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you have, if actually the people that define everything, that is the leadership, stands for what is, in this case, right, I'll say, that is in environmental protection, then I am sure enforcement will be very easy. And I think whatever has been lacking for most of the time has been, we have actually made the whole thing to look so normal. In other people, they will say we have actually normalized everything, and so we don't even see it. And if something bad is happening to the environment, unless it is catastrophic, that is where now we tend to see more of reaction. So our approach has always been reactive, but not proactive. And the moment we start being proactive, I am sure it's going to take a whole news. Before you start pointing finger to someone that this person is doing the wrong thing, are you doing the right thing when it comes to environmental protection? In regards now, when you look in this specific thing, in regards to plastic pollution, are we doing the right thing? If we are doing the right thing, then who is failing? What is it that can be done? Then if we actually get to see that we see where the gaps are, we have professional bodies that can actually voice out, that stand in influential positions to actually make sure that some of these policies are actually implemented and enforced the right way. So for me, the difference is policies are there, they're not implemented. We have very beautiful policies. If we actually implemented even a quarter of the policies that we have, I am sure a good number of the problems that we have in Kenya, as far as environmental protection is concerned, will not be there. So thank you. Allow me to stop it at that point.
Thank you, Eric, for the nice presentation. I think it was very informative. In your presentation, I think I've seen what we call the waste management hierarchy, which is outlining the best and the most preferred and the least preferred waste management practices. So thank you very much, Eric, for that presentation. So at this juncture, we are moving to the next presenter, and we are going to listen from Richard Kainik. And Richard Kainika is the chairperson of Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. And Richard is going to make a presentation on circular economy models, which is business and community solutions, and is going to give an overview of plastic waste recycling landscape. Little about Richard is that he's a circular economy advocate, and previously he has been a board member of KEPRO, also been a member of the National Skills Committee, and also director at Pure Planet Recyclers Limited. And he has also served, is currently serving as the Secretary General of Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. And there is no better person to speak to us on this particular subject of an overview of waste management recycling landscape, other than the chairperson of the waste recyclers. So, Richard, the floor is yours. You have your 15 minutes starting now.
Thank you very much. The pressure is mine, and good afternoon, everyone. The good introduction allows me to come in and proceed. Kenya Association of Waste Recycler, as on whose auspices I come to this forum, is a business membership organization for private sector enterprises that are involved in extraction of value from waste. I have been requested, albeit on a short notice, to come and talk to us about the circular economy for plastic waste in Kenya and the solutions. And let me begin by saying, and I hope that I'm clear from your end and that you let me know if I drift off.
You're very clear. You're very clear.
Thank you very much. I'll begin by saying that Kenya boasts a growing circular recycling sector, but majority of enterprises that are involved are struggling to thrive due to operational costs, lack of capital, working capital, and market distortions for the recovered materials that is caused by the current unregulated waste materials market. All these put together make it hard for recyclers to compete, to operate competitively, and there is need for deliberate policy and fiscal space to support the local circular enterprises. Like I've said, finance comes very high, and then there is the issue of infrastructure. And also now that we got, as we heard from our previous presenters, we have the EPR dispensation or obligation, whichever you want to call it, that is now coming in place. And when we say EPR, it's also good to take note that the regulations which were supposed to take effect on the 4th of last month, sorry, we just got into June, got petitioned in court, and we are now going through a conservatory order because of some concerns that the petitioners have raised. Therefore, as we speak, the regulations are in freeze mode, and therefore we are still operating using the old system. Maybe better to call it the linear model, those of us who understand the difference between linear and circular model. The promise of the EPR is not realized. The potential is tremendous, but the potential to transform plastic waste flows in its current form, implementation remains opaque and exclusionary, especially for micro and community-based recyclers. I want to say this, to bring this up again, that when we talk about recycling, the picture that comes to mind majority of times is plastic waste collected and recycling. But from the perspective of the association, recycling is basically diversion of waste, for instance, from the bin back to the economy. This could be through agriculture, through processing and manufacturing. Therefore, when we look at the recycling as a subsector, as an industry sector in the country, which is quite big, oftentimes we fail to see the picture that recycling, this is a big problem because the regulated recycling activities majority of times are in the apex level of the value chain, meaning that these are the licensed corporate players that are at the top of the pyramid. But the greater downstream oftentimes have regulatory challenges, including licenses. And when we talk about licenses, I know you understand that we serve under two level of governments, the county governments, upon which constitutionally waste is devolved, and also we have the national government, which of course provides the oversight, the national oversight through NEMA, and therefore our industry is regulated by the two, whereby a majority of times you find that licenses, for instance, a recycling license would be required from NEMA and as well as from the county regulatory departments. This is really a big challenge considering the kind of players that I just described. And the fact that these licenses really are not commensurate with the level of income for these particular players. We have seen in a number of license regimes, like if I could use the Nairobi City County, when you apply for trade license or any other license for that matter, you find that it is based on, after you fill the application, you fall under a specific class. This depends on probably the size of your facility, or the number of employees, or maybe other features. And they use this to categorize the particular applicant so that they can pay some money that somehow reflects the level of business that they play. When we come to recycling, you'll be surprised to find that a corporate entity, as big as you can imagine, would have a similar license with an aggregator who's just starting. They call it a startup, a very informal startup. So there is a big problem where that is concerned. And even as EPL is promising change, we have not been successful in setting the concept of not leaving some people behind or some stakeholders behind. So as such, there has been policy disjoints that we need to resolve when we consider getting onboarding the circular way of waste management. We have disconnects in the way of promotion of circular economy. Like I said, the issue of double licensing has been very profound. We have also been experiencing county governments that have either by design decided not to work together for the benefit of waste management, or they just don't see the need to come together and facilitate waste management. It's also important for us to note that waste management culturally is, a county government responsibility. And much of what is happening currently in terms of waste management, especially for the main urban county governments or regions, you find that majority of waste management activities are in the hand of the private sector. So one of a very, very discouraging concern is the requirement for this interception every time you cross the border to get into the other county and you have some waste fractions. The requirement for fees in the name of cess. I don't know whether it is in the right description, because my understanding is cess is supposed to be revenue generated from produce from the particular county. But in this case, counties generate waste from majority of times from packaging or other end-of-life inorganic products, which majority of times we refer to when we are talking about recycling. And therefore, these materials, because of inequalities in terms of industrialization, depending on which county you want to look at, the more industrialized counties will sort of attract inorganic materials that are recovered, because rural counties may lack processing capacities. During the process of moving these resources, then we encounter issues with requirement to pay for cross-border fees. So our call is that we need to harmonize regulations and introduce recycler-friendly bylaws that will facilitate circular businesses. As we speak about the fate of the EPR regulations today, all Sustainable Waste Management Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations of 2024, it's important for us to note that the reason for which we are suffering these fleas, and I say, you know, the waste management players are afflicted by these jurisprudence because our expectations were that now, beginning from the last month, then the producers, the literal extension of responsibility now will cross over to the producer side. And therefore, beginning last month, we expected that the producers, by description, by the legal description, producer would be one who is making or manufacturing. The other one is importers. The other ones are fillers and packers. These players who are supposed to cross over to the waste management side and have a discussion on how their end-of-life products are managed at the post-dump dustbin age. Now this has not happened. Therefore, the status is as it was previously. Therefore, the hope of the waste managers has been dampened, and we are crossing our fingers hoping that this process is going to be expedited by the good court, and that all stakeholders will be considered. But then what I wanted to bring on board was the issue of policy making, whereby you realize that the contentious part of this policy and the part for which the petitioner found the grip was that it is alleged that the document has some added content post public participation. Legally, you know now that is not right, and therefore whoever went to court has the right of hearing. And it is not right if that was done as it is alleged. So it communicates the way legislation is done, and also it communicates how the stakeholders are heeded by the authority. And it also speaks about the future of when a stakeholder has a point, as much as relevant as it may be for them and not for the other stakeholder, the importance of heeding the call of a stakeholder. Because when a stakeholder is not well consulted, then it means that that stakeholder could go to court and end up spending a lot of precious time and holding back the anticipated progress. We currently have the issue of waste sorting or waste separation at source, and I want to commend the government for the enaction of the national color coding scheme, whereby we were able to get the 3 bin colors, the blue for recycling, which is of course what we look at all the majority of times. Then we have green for organic waste, and lastly we have black for general waste. I want to believe that majority of us have 3 bins and not necessarily plastic or solid bins, but 3 receptacles, maybe not colored. But I also feel that there is a high likelihood that some of us may not even have 2 bins. And that's a very, very huge concern for us as recyclers, because it's a big concern that now we have the policy in place, but the awareness is still very low. For recyclers, we look forward to a time when we'll work together as stakeholders and bring every person on board in terms of separation of waste at source. This is because for us, when waste is separated, it lowers a lot in terms of cost of process. And cost of process is perhaps the cost of doing business for us. So it is very, very important that even after we have now the color coding scheme already enacted and put in place, there is need for all of us as stakeholders to come together and create awareness so that every person in the family and in every other institution is aware that we need to separate our waste. And we need also to make sure that once the waste is separated, waste is treated differently. Organic waste are supposed to be expedited towards a processing facility. This could be an MRF going by the new Sustainable Waste Management Act of 2022. And inorganic waste are also supposed to be taken to an MRF where recycling or, the disposal is done in line with the regulations. We advocate for urgent rollout of mass awareness, public awareness, so that this color code, without proper separation at source, the rest of the recycling value chain could collapse. Much as we also appreciate this call by academia as we build up to the World Environment Day commemoration, we also find that there is a critical role for the academia in enhancing circular economy, because this should be the place where incubation of innovation is done. Institutions like Tharaka University are very, very strategically positioned to become the laboratories or living labs for circular economy models. You could help us to pilot waste to resource innovations. We have critical issues, very, very big menace in regards to composting and any valid and legal destination for organic waste. As we note that the capital county, Nairobi, followed by Mombasa, Kisumu, and other big urbanized counties are having serious menaces coming from organic waste. It's also worth noting that in the mitigation of global heating and climate change, there is a big urgency for us to seek sustainable ways of dealing with organic waste in order for us to reduce emissions. And there is a huge potential that has not been realized yet from the perspective of a recycler, whereby we can use the organic waste that we are producing to the levels of above 60% of all solid waste, convert that to resource through production of fertilizers and soil nutritional products, as well as waste to energy enterprises. And these are projects that can be well incubated by the academia, because for us, as I said, majority of recycling is in the private sector hands, and therefore every little thing we try to do costs money, and the risks are defined in terms of money, and therefore it becomes very expensive for private sector enterprises to venture in innovation and still remain sustainable. So organic waste being 60%, for Nairobi, I think it is 62%. There is a very important need for support in this regard, so that we are able to try to enhance the consumption.
You can maybe summarize?
Yes, thank you. So we need to see how best we can accommodate organic waste instead of dumping it in our dump sites, whereby you find when we go to facilities like Dandora, majority of what we find there is organic waste that continues to pollute and to cause climate damages. Maybe lastly, I would want also to call for collaboration. That with all this that we have been able to bring ahead, we request that there is need for to pilot initiative whereby waste innovation incubator could be based in your university. We see that the Environment Institute of Kenya is also a stakeholder in this forum, and we appreciate the level of knowledge in this area, and the Recycling Association, which also comes along with quite a number of myriad of practitioners that are doing specific materials to test models in digital tracking, for instance, of plastics, eco-entrepreneurship training, as well as green jobs for youth. I think because of time, this is what I'll bring into this. We'll also be having a presentation at the WE, the World Environment Day commemorations, on this year's commemoration at on the 5th of this month. And I welcome all of you, those who make it to the facility, to the event, to give a visit to our booth and learn more about what we do. You can also visit our website at kenyarecyclers.co.ke. That is all for now. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richard, for the thought-provoking, well-organized presentation, highlighting to us the dynamics and the issues to do with the waste recycling, with the focus of the landscape in Kenya. I've highlighted, for me, I've jotted out a few main points, the challenges facing the small scale, or what you are referring us to the macro players, whereby the policy framework is not levelized. There is also the disjointed legislative in terms of lack of cooperation between the county governments and even the national governments, whereby you are required to have double license from NEMA and even to the county government. Issues to do with the national color coding scheme. I think participants in this particular meeting, you should get to know this. I think it is very, very important for us to understand this national color coding scheme that we have learned from Richard. Percent of waste in the dump site are organic waste, and organic waste, bigger percentage of it is food waste. Well, that is on the line. Just cook the portion that you know you will finish, so that we increase this percentage of 62% of organic waste in the dump site. So thank you very much, Richard, for making that presentation. I think we will keep the questions meant for Richard, because we are inviting the next presenter, whose presentation is closely aligned with what Richard has presented to us on. And the next presenter is Millicent Ochieng from T3, and she is going to make for us a presentation with a question focusing on, are plastic waste management enterprises thriving in Kenya? I think that is a very interesting question if you want to engage in that business. But Millicent is, a brief about Millicent is that she is a supply chain and compliance officer at this organization referred to as the T3 Africa. Maybe she can explain to us what this T3 applies to. And in this organization, she supports efficient operations and ensures regulatory compliance across the organization. So there is no person better placed to us to explain to us what waste management enterprises involve, and is it a viable business? Millicent, the floor is yours to engage the audience. You have your 15 minutes starting now. Millicent, is Millicent in the meeting? I can't see any hand. Maybe she